On today's episode, we discuss finding your white space and the options you have when presented with an online media crisis.
We also talk about the Smiths family and Jada's most recent entanglement and why it's shaking up Twitter.
Welcome back to the Digi podcast. I'm Sierra.
And I'm Zooey.
And today we have a very interesting topic that we're going to be delving into. It relates to crisis management. It relates to cancel culture, which has been so prevalent in essentially any social media platform you've been on recently. And we're also going to discuss more specifically the Red Table talk that happened with Jada and Will Smith. So yeah, oh my God, where do we even start with all this? This is a lot to delve into.
Well, I think we should start about just kind of give a quick overview about what the Red Table Talk is, where it's hosted, who's on the Red Table Talk, because I guess people might not know. People might not know that Will Smith is actually not on it. It's just Jada, her mother, and her daughter Willow. So,
and if y'all don't know who the Smith family are, what rock are you living under?
Basically.
Get out of it. So yeah, I think you probably have a better understanding of
what Red Table Talk is. Okay.
Yeah.
So I've actually been watching every episode since its creation. I find it interesting. I think it's kind of soothing. Jada and her mother and Willow all have such a sweet, nice relationship. They just are so open and honest and whatnot. So it's basically an intergenerational conversation that they have between themselves. They often have guests where they can discuss, I guess, whatever's happening in their life at that moment. I guess the top highlight ones are when the whole situation with Kylie Jenner and Jordan happened. They had Jordan on there, allowed her to have her opportunity to speak her piece. I think it was kind of healing for her and for the whole situation, because it kind of gave it gave her an opportunity to kind of express what happened and kind of stopped a lot of the inferences that were happening and rumor mills that usually happen when something as scandalous as what happened between them and her and Tristan occurred.
A cheating scandal. Yeah. Allowed her to have a platform where she could give her side of the story, essentially.
Yeah, so they often have other celebrity guests and such. So it's hosted surprisingly on such a underutilized platform called a Facebook Watch. It's actually one of its top viewed shows. I personally didn't even know there was such a thing until Red Table Talk, where you could watch full episodes on Facebook. I didn't even know, and I work in Facebook. I work on the platform, not the normal side, but the ad side. So I would think that I would be more aware about its capabilities, but no, I wasn't. So yeah, it's basically just a show where the women of that family get to talk and kind of express their feelings on different topics, and they have other people come on, and yeah, and it's hosted on Facebook, where it's just its flagship. It's one of the top watched shows on Facebook Watch.
I think it is actually a really interesting opportunity, not just for Jada and her family. I also think it's given, to your point, Facebook has had a massive opportunity through having them on their platform, which is 100%. Super underutilized on that front. But I also think it hasn't been uncommon for Facebook to be behind the game for video. That's a whole nother topic of discussion, but I just think for both parties, super advantageous to have a celebrity, a mainstream celebrity, use a digital platform, one that, again, underutilized, not really performing super well in that department, doesn't have any type of flagship presence, give these women a spot where they can like really like take over and essentially dominate. Like, again, I pose the question, how many other Facebook Watch shows do you watch
I
know
know
about
of Nenny.
even?
I said Nenny. I know of none. I know of none. I mixed many and none together and I said Nenny, but like I know of none. So I might actually do some research and see if they have any others. They must have, because like they wouldn't have marketed a whole platform for like full episodes if there wasn't any other. But I think this is just the one that's kind of broken through to like the larger like pop culture, I think. Yeah.
I think something like to take away from this, and it's like a really good example again from both perspectives from Facebook like as a business and a platform, and then also Jada and her family as like an enterprise, as like their brand. It's like a topic on finding your white space and finding the area where there is very low saturation but an opportunity for high viewership. And so I think not only were they able to really dominate on that front, I also think, again, it's something that is becoming like really it's becoming Facebook's advantage, because even just to take a step outside of the Red Table Talk, like if you look at Facebook Gaming, it is the fastest growing live stream platform compared to Twitch,
and there's Facebook Dating.
They are, I don't know if I should say necessarily that
taking
like
over the world.
Yes. But even like I don't even know if that's an effective strategy. Like I don't know if that's a good idea, but I do think it was about time that they started to really heavily invest into their video strategy, because in a lot of ways, from a lot of angles, with the Jada and Will like situation, and just the Red Table Talk show itself, Facebook Gaming, all those fronts are just growing so quickly. And like a lot of the advice that I've been getting even from like gamers is to start your brand on Facebook Gaming. And you would think in your head like, that's so silly, why would I do that? Obviously you need like a decent content strategy before you just throw yourself on a platform, but there's no one on it yet. I say no one in parentheses because like it's growing so quickly that like you better be on it now if you want to take advantage of this empty white space. But yeah, I think to bring it back to Jada, I think that their family has done an amazing job deciding or taking that kind of like low, or I guess evaluated risk, and being like, we should move on to this platform exclusively because there's no one else on it and there is an opportunity for growth, and they also had a really great concept.
100%. Yeah, they could have easily went to one of the like Bravo or like a TLC or whatnot and just been on normal cable television, but I think they understood that, especially given like the digital content strategy that Will has himself. Like if you ever look at his Instagram, it's so
you see him on like the YouTube what's it
on
called?
YouTube as well. Like it's just so well produced, so well like managed, is so good. Like he just has such a good content strategy. So they understood the necessity for digital, the fact that like that's where we're moving towards. That's how like society's moving towards. We're moving away from normal cable television towards like more like digital TV. And like, you know, there's this platform in the States where I am right now. It's called YouTube TV, and it's literally every single channel and YouTube and like, you know what I mean? Like all these other like just there, and you watch it on demand, and like it has ads, and guess what? The ads are like made for you. They're like specific. Me as a digital ads person, like I'm like, what? Like they're like literally Google, like you're connected to your Google account. So these ads are specifically for you. So they're so targeted. So they're so much more effective. You know what I mean? So I just like, I think the Smith family understood the value of going to a platform, a digital platform like that, and kind of like pushing their brand further, and like having such a monopoly on it as well.
And also realizing that it might actually be better, like, because they are huge fish in a giant pond being celebrities, but also now they are in a small pond and they're still huge fish.
Yeah.
Like, they are completely dominating that market, and it'll be interesting to see, like, I don't know necessarily if independent creators can fully thrive now with that competition. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It just kind of is, because like when you set a precedent with a platform saying we have Jada and her family here who already have like a lot of weight behind their names, like, and then say open it up to everyone else to exist on, which I don't know if that's going to be the case or what's going to happen on that front, but like, will that be is that like a good thing for content creators? Like, is this a good thing for the individual like startup? I don't know. I honestly don't think that someone could like copy and paste themselves onto Facebook Watch from a YouTube, for instance, or like from a Twitch.
No, it'd be a completely different audience.
And I also don't think that they need to, because I think, again, if you go back to talking about Facebook and the Facebook monopoly, like, I kind of don't want them to win at every angle. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's an interesting one, because if you look at it from like the standpoint of like most big tech companies, the big three, like Amazon is in so many industries, and like I don't think people understand that, like, they're not just like a retailer, you know what I mean, online retailer. They're like so many other things, and like they use their other more profitable like entities to fund the least profitable one, which is retail, in order to increase their market share, in order to get their competitors basically like bleed them dry so that they can take over that entire industry. So in a sense, Facebook might be doing the same strategy, where they're kind of looking at expanding into other avenues, because they understand like they have the largest user base like out of any social network ever. You know what I mean? It's massive. They haven't utilized it, and like now that like Facebook itself, like the main platform, is losing its cool for like the younger kids and like, you know, millennials and like 100%. Whatnot. We have all kind of migrated off of the actual platform onto their sister platform, Instagram. Had they not bought Instagram, it might have been over for Facebook. You know what I mean? So I think they're kind of seeing that it's a need now, rather than like just a want to like expand further into other avenues of whatever, and actually utilizing their massive user base more efficiently. You know what I mean? Because before they just thought they could just show them ads when they're on the page, but now people are just never on that specific page anymore. So they just have to expand further. But back to the Red Table Talk. So the one specific episode we'd like to discuss today is the one where Jada brought herself back to the red table.
The infamous Red Table Talk. I would argue that this actually like made it even more mainstream.
Oh, for sure. When she said, "I'm gonna bring myself to the red table."
Those memes were...
Oh, I loved it.
Good.
Oh my god. The anticipation was killing me. I was so excited. It was like, you know, like it felt like the finale or something. So
do you want to give some background on like what happened for those who don't know at all the situation and why Will Smith was even on her show, because he typically isn't? Do you want to give some insight into why that happened?
Yeah. So basically, Will and Jada were on a period of time where they were separated. During that break, she had a relationship with the R&B singer called August Alsina. An entanglement. So the reason why she initially brought herself to the Red Table Talk is because August Alsina had a interview to basically promote his new upcoming EP, I believe, with the Breakfast Club, Angela Yee's Breakfast Club. So during that conversation, he basically, because there have been like rumors that August and Jada were having a situation during the period of time they were, but they denied it most of the time. And this time around, he basically expressed that he was deeply in love with her, and that if he had, I don't know, I might be quoting this incorrectly, but he basically said that if he were to die today, he'd be happy because he got to feel that type of love. So like basically expressing his like undying love during that period of time that they were together. So it wasn't I don't think he did it in a way to like be messy. I think it was just part of his journey, his story. He had a very, I guess, turbulent life over the past couple of years. So I think that part of his life was, you know, a point of joy. So he expressed that when that video and that interview kind of went to the internet sphere. Twitter kind of blew up. And then after Twitter blows up, you know, Instagram gets its crumbs.
Yeah.
Because it seems like Instagram always is so late, and then Facebook gets it. But anyways, so basically the internet social networks kind of blew up, and people were just having a field day with this because, as with anything, they took what he said out of context and made it more than what it was. And then basically in that situation, I guess, Jada felt it was necessary to kind of come on her own platform, on her own terms, kind of thing. So that's why she initially said she was going to bring herself to the Red Table Talk.
Yeah, and I think, well, it's an interesting case study in crisis management and using your platform in order to navigate something that might jeopardize you, whether that be like your work or your relationships. Like, I think cancel culture, for example, like I want to put that in quotations because I don't know if this is like a copy and paste example of like a cancel moment, but I definitely think this is like a good example of people being under scrutiny for whatever decision at like a mass scale on the internet. Like, that's like indisputable. They had their personal lives, they had something happen, and everyone was looking and seeing and making their opinions and making their perceptions. And so I think something to take away from the Red Table Talk that Jada and Will did was the options that someone might have, whether you be a brand, as a person, an influencer, a content creator, a Twitch streamer, whatever, or even just a regular Joe. Like, how do you navigate crisis, specifically digitally? How do you navigate, like, what are your options? What is the best option? Do we think that Jada and Will chose the best option for their situation? And like, we'll pose that as a question. And I also think having the different types of options that you have, just generally speaking, is also super valuable. Yeah. So I think if we bring it back to what happened on the Red Table Talk, they addressed the situation in fairly vague terms. Like, if you want to give maybe more background on how that went. Yeah.
So she initially referred to it as an entanglement, and social media went crazy about that. Twitter went crazy about that. It was meme central. But then Will kind of asked her again and asked her to clarify, and then she said that she then admitted to it being a relationship. But they basically, that was the only admission really that was that occurred throughout the entire Red Table Talk. The majority of the talk was just expressing the difficulties her and Will faced during that period of time and how they were separated for a period of time and they didn't think they were going to get back together. They basically mainly focused on Will and Jada's relationship rather than the relationship between her and August. And I guess in the framework of them being a married couple, they are, you know, that period of time was a hard time for them. So they basically, rather than like kind of delve too deep into like why it happened and like the specifics of that relationship, they rather talk about how they overcame it and like what has changed since then and like such and such. So in a sense, they didn't really give people the tea that they were looking for.
Yes.
They just had one admission, which is that there was a relationship that happened, and during that relationship, she decided on she wanted to help people, like help others, like that's how that was her dependency. She like to, instead of fixing herself, she wanted to fix others, and that was it basically. Other than that, there was no other admissions, there was no other things, there was nothing else. And in a sense, I think it was a smart like route of taking the route they took, because it didn't give people really enough to hold on to. Like they have the like, let's be honest, is anyone else talking about like Will and Jada now, like this week? No, like it's last week's news, because all they really had,
the beef was squashed,
was the entanglement. Like that's all they had. Like, you know what I mean? When she said entanglement, had she started off and said just relationship off rip, no one would have anything else to say, because there was no like, you know what I mean? There was no term, there was no like nothing spicy in there really other than that. So it's just I think in my point of view, the way they decided to like acknowledge a portion of it, like the main portion, which was there a relationship? Yes, there was. And then
that's
move the focus towards what they think is like more important, which is Will and Jada's relationship and like what they've done and how they overcame it and like their life and like whatnot. And like I think that was an interesting pivot, and I understood why they would want to do that type of pivot, because if you delve too deep into like the nitty-gritty of the situation, that just brings more airtime to it, and oftentimes it's kind of more problematic. It's more problematic than it is beneficial in that situation, because then people have more quotes and more
you risk yourself digging yourself a bigger hole.
Exactly.
So I think Jada did that, like she had enough time to do a cost benefit analysis, because it took them time to come out with it, obviously. So I think that there are like 3 routes essentially that you can take in any crisis situation. So you say nothing and the narrative is buried, like however long it takes, you ignore it and you literally just move on to something else. You can be vague and not completely own up and divert attention, which I think we both kind of agreed that was the route that Jada took.
Yeah, I agree.
Or you can, and I'm going to call this like the messy route, you can lay it all on the table, which I think is what is happening with a lot of
YouTubers.
Like YouTubers.
Yeah, that's the YouTuber. That's the
YouTube approach. Is just like, here's everything that happened. Here are the receipts. Here's what happened on this day. This is the Chipotle that I ordered at 9 a.m. And it's like, bro, no one asked for like all of this. And that's why those videos are like 45 minutes long.
Yeah.
Like Jada and Will's video
12 minutes.
Is 12 minutes.
Digestible. Like that's it.
Yeah, like it's like an amuse-bouche. It's like, I didn't need to sit here and hear that, like, again, like she woke up at 6 a.m. did Pilates. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like all I want to know personally, and the only thing I want to digest is like, why did I come to that video? I wanted to find out if she did it. Did I get that answered? Yes.
And was it the answer that the messiness in most people wanted? No, but it was an answer nonetheless.
And also, why do we want that? I don't want that.
I think it's the drama of it all, because like they're considered kind of
spectacle.
Like, they're considered like, you know, royalty, like, you know what I mean, Hollywood, like black royalty. So I think it's like they've been put on a pedestal. So like, I don't know, I feel like people just like seeing like a small peek into people's like messy lives. I think that's a lot of the reasons why I like reading Am I the Asshole on Reddit. You know what I mean? And like relationship advice, relationship advice, you know. I don't comment on them, I don't give them advice, I just like to read them, like, because I like to know about other people's messy lives. And
it's an interesting obsession that we have, and I'm happy in a way that like it's so interesting how like much more gracefully they've been able to handle, like, as whatever your opinion is about like how they handled it, you have to admit, compared to a lot of other people on different platforms, I'm looking at you YouTubers, they have handled it. And okay, so like I'm not trying to like copy and paste what they went through to like other people dealing with like other cancel instances on other platforms, because those are a lot more severe and a lot different, and like those should be handled separately. But I do think they were tactful. They were very tactful. They weren't too PR. They were authentic enough. They kept bringing it back to their relationship and like their struggles. And I think personally, like, they kept it real. And I also think it's really like the topic of conversation I see coming back and forth a lot is this like foil between Jada and Will, and like people are talking about the pain that Will's experiencing versus Jada being like collected and calm. And I also I just find that fascinating, because
they make stuff up in their heads based on how they're feeling, you know. That's usually people project. It's a projection,
and it's unfair also, because so what, a woman sat there and tactfully and diplomatically spoke about something very personal, and she didn't cry, and she was posed well, and like, I don't know, I don't see how that has to come off as like Will being in pain if Jada is, you know, like being a tactful presenter. I don't see the connection there. I think that's a really interesting thing that's being pulled from it. But anyways, I think even just from some of my own personal experience with like tiny internet drama, like I do think that they made the correct approach. I also think an interesting analysis is when you're confronted with the backlash, or like people being expectant of your reply to something, or like looking for answers to something that you did on the internet, knowing which route to choose can actually be very difficult, because I think what happens is these platforms exist in a vacuum. So for example, Twitter, if you're receiving like way more than normal, like I'll call it in quotations hate, or like people like lambasting you with things that aren't very nice for something that you've done, or like being overcritical against a decision that you made, I think it's really good to take a step back and like ask yourself, is this a large portion of my audience? Like, how big is this? Like, is it only 10 loud, like, losers who don't have anything better to do than to lambast me with vitriol? Or is it a, like, because, okay, so Jada and Will had to think our jobs are at risk, our money's at risk, something had to be at risk, and a huge portion of their audience had to be coming at them for them to make this decision to address this, because in a lot of cases people just don't. It's not worth it. People will move on, people will talk about something else. So I think it's interesting to know that like they both have felt, or at least one of them felt, that they were going to lose something if they didn't talk about it. And I think that has to be like the biggest question that you ask yourself, like, what will I lose by not addressing this, or by addressing this? Because
some celebrities and brands and whatnot have a tendency of, and like every negative comment, like they reply to it, or like they give it some sort of like I guess exposure in a sense, but they don't realize how many like positive comments they get, how many positive, like, you know what I mean? Because you're so like when something happens to you, like let's say like positivity is always given to you, you just are so accustomed to it that it's not really, doesn't have that much, you know what I mean, kick to it. But when someone says something negative to you, that's when you're like, no, like I'm not gonna let this person say this to me. And then sometimes it's just like, as specifically as a brand, as a personal brand, like even your own personal brand, it's just sometimes not worth it. It's most of the time it's not worth it. And if you do respond, like you have to make a very like, you'd have to make a very like large like cost benefit analysis. Like, is this worth my time? Is this gonna make it worse by giving it airtime? Like what is the benefit for me to do, and what is the cost for me to do it? You know what I mean? And then you have to make a very like, you know what I mean, like just a decision based off of those learnings. But most of the time it's not worth it. Most of the time it's not. And even for Jada and Will, they noticed, they realized it's not worth giving the public a full like play-by-play about what went down, because it's not worth it. We'll give it a small admission at that, and be on our way, which I think was a good strategy in my mind. Obviously there's some naysayers, and I even saw people being like, oh, like they weren't forthcoming enough, or they weren't truthful enough, blah 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 blah, and like it seems like Jada was getting a lot more flack. But in the end, let's be honest, the 24-hour news cycle, people find something else to look at.
Yeah. And I also think it's interesting that like we as a collective society are so pervasive that like celebrities, or like just people generally, feel that they need to address like a personal relationship, like an entanglement. I'll call it
entanglement.
An entanglement.
We can discuss that way more in our cancel culture episode as well, because that can be its own episode.
100%.
Yeah.
Like I think this is like this is the appetizer. This is the pre-cancel culture video, because it's like, I think knowing you have three options, knowing that they are, you do nothing, you are vague, and you don't give a lot of information, but you do, at least you give them a crumb, or I guess address the thing that people are dying to know, but in a way that you can talk about something else with. And then the third option being you are messy, and I only think that that's a good option if I think if there's legality involved.
Yes.
Or like you need to prove that you did not do something illegal, or you're being accused of something that
you did not do, and it's like gonna affect you negatively, legally, financially, you know what I mean, those type of things. Then I see the benefit in like going full throttle and like kind of going step by step. But other than that, most times it's better just to not address it. If you feel so, you know what I mean, pushed to, then give a very, like, I want to say PR answer, but very like answer what people are giving the most.
It was an entanglement.
Give them answer to the question that they're dying for, and then from there just move on. But okay, so how do people decide on what strategy to go about? Like, what, let's say for the average Joe Schmuck who well, it's not average Joe Schmuck, let's say one of these our digital babes kind of moved up the corporate ladder, is now in a more hyper visible position, and something they said or did 10 years ago, 20 years ago comes back up. In that situation, what do you do? Like, which one would you choose? And or if we can't be like, you don't know which specific one, like it's all dependent on the situation, what is your, like, how do you decide on that sliding scale on like what is worth a response? What do you think?
Well, I also think like, I think in this instance, something that people don't realize, or I think the thing that needs to be, the veil needs to be lifted on, is that like you have to take a second to make that evaluation. And I think the challenge that a lot of people are faced with, especially with how quickly like social media moves, is that people are damned if they do and damned if they don't. Because if they give an answer right away, any answer at all, or say anything about it, you didn't think hard enough about your apology, or you didn't think hard enough about what you've done, or you didn't think. But if you wait, and I've been in both situations where like I've been with a brand, or I've had like a web series that I've worked on, like, you took X amount of time, why did it take you so long? And it's like been a day, and I'm like, can we all just like have a minute? I think that's like the real struggle that I think a lot of people are going to have when they're faced with these situations, is like how quickly you almost need to be ready for it before it happens, if I'm being completely honest. You need to have for every single thing that you could get canceled for now, like a kit essentially for how you
are going to
proceed.
Respond.
because you have to be ready. Like, because like those people have a gun to your head immediately. They are looking for it, like now. And also, I think in your infancy, if you are, again, like this is maybe your first associate position, you're just kind of moved up in the ranks, you got a little bit of clout on the internet, like just those like first moments are so pivotal and to how you position yourself. And so I think it really depends on the scenario, like where the sliding scale exists. But I think that if you were to say like my reputation versus my revenue versus like whatever it is that you're going to be losing, like I think you literally have to say like, can I lose my job? Will I lose my rent? Will I lose my friends?
Yeah.
And like if the answer is yes to some of those questions, then you might have to respond. Like,
and it has to be a well thought out response, because you can't leave any holes in there. But I guess in preparation, for a potential crisis, make like initial changes, not even changes, like just things that you could do so that you won't get to that point. I remember when I think a couple of the main takeaways I had from my PR program was that your presence online is a large factor on how people view you. So and like employers, potential brands, whatever you want, if you're planning on partnering with people, they're going to look at your social media, their personal social media. So in order to like limit the opportunities for something to come about that you might have said or done in your childhood or your adolescence, wipe it clean.
Girl, delete it.
Wipe it clean.
Girl, delete it.
Yeah.
Why is it there? Why are you messy? Why are you doing that? Why isn't your Instagram on private? Literally. What are you doing?
Wipe it clean. Yeah, because that's literally what I did. I wiped my Facebook clean. Now I'm upset because I didn't really save all those old pictures, and like I missed out on like all my high school, like awkward high school days. But it was a necessity. Like it was a necessity. I deleted my old Twitter.
Girl, I deleted my Tumblr so fast. I don't know what is on there, but no one needs to know.
Exactly.
No one needs to know. And and that's the thing. And so like in recent days, this is super, super topical. Chrissy Teigen, 60,000 tweets.
Yeah.
Deleted into thin air. Why were those there in the first place? And I get her brand is to kind of be messy, generally speaking, but like I think that that's like another interesting case study on like why being messy is not a long-term brand. Yeah. It's not.
No. Because
it's going to get you
in the moment. It might not seem as bad, but 2, 3, 4 years down the line, what you might have said could be considered like really bad and really like disrespectful or like, you know, hurtful to whomever that you might have said something to, you know? So it's better just to say on the PG side. I'd say that's my 2 cents, you know, just be PG. If you want to be a little raunchy, PG-13, but other than that, don't. Make yourself brand safe. I know.
Are you a comedian?
Yeah.
If you're not a comedian, like if you're not asking yourself, am I going to be on Adult Swim? Am I going to be on like Late Night with so and so doing like my stand up gig? Then like you're not the person like. And I think again, this goes right back to YouTubers and influencers. Like there's a huge culling happening, and it's happening because like those people are not stand up comedians, and they're not safe from like the South Park mentality, the like nobody's safe, anyone can say anything. Like those things are vetted by people who make stuff go on national television, and there's a reason why those people are allowed to say, are able to say what they are without quite as much backlash. Like
they still get backlash. A lot of people.
Oh, absolutely.
A lot of people hate Family Guy for the fact that it's racist and sexist and homophobic and all that stuff. Same with South Park. But I think what their reasoning is they're the phobics for everything. Like there's no one that's safe. I don't know if I agree with that thinking, but I think if it's able to be on a network TV, there's a reason behind it. But you as an individual influencer and YouTuber, you don't have that same backing as
there's no safety or union for you. I'm sorry.
No.
You have to be your own, and you also have to make that judgment call, like where it's like, would this affect me? Say one day you want to go corporate.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be able to work for, like, I don't know, Uber. Like, are you going to be able to do that corporate job? If the answer is, well, probably not, then maybe there's a better way to reformat that tweet. Maybe there's a better thing, a funnier way to say it without being quite so raunchy, or like, I don't know. It's the thing. People's taste changes, humor changes, everything evolves, and I think like that's the key here. Is I think a lot of it was like done in shock and awe. We're so past that, like section of humanity. Yeah, it was never going to have longevity. So I think the first step, scrub your socials. Yes. Why are they still there? And I think if you don't even have to be going for a public figure position, or like going for that influencer, or like whatever it is, to have that fall back on you. Don't be thinking that your potential job isn't looking through your social media. They are.
100% they are. I have a funny story actually about that. But I think I could tell another day. But it's about like a potential hire coming to our company, and my manager looking at their Instagram, and it didn't turn out that well, because the Instagram was very, like, explicit.
Yeah, then their person didn't get their job.
Yeah, we had other, like, people that were interviewing. It wasn't specifically because of that, but their Instagram was extremely explicit and theirs open. So it's better to just have everything be on your side rather than have any negatives. So if you're gonna have a more explicit Instagram, and like that's gonna be your type of situation, then have it private, make it your friends only. Post on your close friends stories, you know what I mean? That's what I do. I post everything on close friends. I love that feature. But other than that, I think we're nearing the end of today's episode. To close it off, what do we want, like, our digital babes to have top of mind? Sierra, those 3 things.
You have 3 options in a crisis situation. 3 avenues you can go down, or forks in the road, or whatever you want to call them. You can say nothing. You can be vague and very PR about it, and then move on and bury that narrative. Or you can be messy, and you can release the receipts, and you can address it all, and the asterisk being only if you need to prove that you didn't do something illegal. And I think with that being the asterisk, why are you picking that choice ever? Yeah. So I think those are like the 3 questions in crisis that you need to ask yourself. Like, if you follow through with one of those, you have to know each of them has an outcome. And do you want that to be the outcome? Like, is it super low risk? Is the thing that you did going to cost you your job? Because if it isn't, it might just be better not to say anything about it. And it, frankly, that's typically the right answer.
Usually, yeah. Usually.
Yeah. So I think that we've pretty much given everyone a taster into managing crisis.
Yeah, managing crises, as well as we want everyone to know, find your white space.
Yes. Oh, great.
Like Jada and Will.
Great
Jada
to bring it back.
Willow. Find your white space. Yeah.
Know where there is low saturation, and know where there is high viewership. And if those 2 can hang out with each other and you can take advantage of that and exploit it, then you definitely should. Maybe now is your time to start Facebook gaming and become a streamer and get on that platform, because no one else is on it. So yeah, I think with that, thank you all for listening to DigiGal. We hope that you enjoyed, and we hope that you send any comments, questions, concerns, advice even, or anything you'd like to bring up in our next episode to our email, digi.gal.cast@gmail.com. And you can follow us on all of our socials. We are digi__gal across all of them. And thank you so much for listening to us. We will see you next time.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.